Hello, everyone. Is everybody, are we ready to go?
Yep.
Okay. Rachel's not coming on?
Yeah, she couldn't stay, so she made me the host.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's gonna be in the
How you guys
background.
doing? I'm actually from, okay. How you guys doing? I'm actually working from home today, so you may see my art in the background. We are on class 7 of 8. So before we set it off, does anybody have any questions they want to ask? Anything that, popped up in their head that they thought about and they'd like to ask us? Now's the time to ask. Um, Thumbs up so far. Everybody's enjoying the program? Yes?
Yeah, we got one thumb, we got a couple thumbs in the
Good.
chat.
All right, everybody, has anybody like made a shift in their lifestyle and the way they do things since the program? If they are, let us know, share it. Anybody kind of made even if it's a slight shift, that's what the program is about. Has anybody done anything different since the program?
So Karina said, "I'm
I'm
budgeting."
budgeting.
Nice.
What about you, Nigel? What about you? I save more money.
I honestly can't lie. I've definitely been trying to be a little bit more vigilant as to like how I spend my money.
Mhm.
And the largest, I think the category where I've been saving the most is food, because that's usually one of my biggest wants. I think so. Normally, I think I spend way too much on lunch, so I've been definitely just keeping track of how much, and setting a limit daily.
And so, Mike, well, how have you thought more about your wants and needs?
Like my spending, like how much I spent, because it's a ridiculous amount, and sometimes I don't really need stuff. So I just really have to think about it if I really need this or if I just want it.
Good. So it's making you conscious. And what about you, Stacy? Stacy, are you there?
Yeah, sorry. I was like typing in the chat, but I stopped wasting like money on like things I don't really need, like food. I'm not saying I don't need food, but like fast food, like ordering like Uber Eats or something like that. So I stopped doing that a lot.
So what are you doing in exchange? Are you cooking?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I always cook, but like at times like I'll feel lazy or something, so like I'll cook a little bit more.
And are you noticing a difference as more you're able to you have more money saved, or you're able to you have more disposable income?
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's not like I used to like waste a lot of money on like fast food or something like that, but like still like it still saves money.
Sean, I muted you by accident.
Okay, sorry. I was like, whoa, how are you hearing me? Okay, so let's get with today. So we've talked about credit. We've talked about learning to live without. I'm gonna let Larry go through the budget where we didn't where we finished off. We didn't quite finish off, and then we'll get into education. When we talk about education, it's not like your typical education class where you're just telling you the importance of an education, why you should go to school, and so forth. We're going to really just bring in the finance perspective of an education, and how that the value in that, and where an education can teach you as far as like finance. So I'll let Larry take it off with the budget.
Well, thanks, Sean. So this was from last week. I don't think it was my bad. I don't think we managed to send this out to you guys, but this is something that we can run through in real time, where we can look at the budget that Sean, if you recall, Sean went over really quickly, but we can look at it from the lens of these specific questions, right? So we can go really quick fire. If people can, if they have the answer, you can just shout it out. But let's go through the questions real quick. So is George spending more or less than he is earning? And where do you see that, if anyone has that answer?
Look at the net amounts. That's definitely a tip.
Anyone shout it out, please. Oh, someone, can I zoom in a little bit? I will zoom in a little bit. What about now? So is he spending more or is he earning more? Going once?
All right. Let me see. Does anybody see anything in the chat? As the hint, look at the total expenses versus the total income.
right? It's right up the top. As Nigel said, you have total income. George made 3,500 bucks in the month. He spent 1,800 bucks. So what is that? What does that mean? What does net mean? He's spending, yes, Mike, you're right. He's spending less than he earned, right? He's got a surplus of 1,600. That being said, what did he budget, right? And originally he had budgeted a savings of 2,500 bucks. So he's actually short based on his budget by 900 bucks. And why is that the case, right? If you look at this, you can figure out and break it down why that's the case. Honestly, his expenses were actually under what he budgeted. So he's done pretty well in his expenses, right? It's a positive difference. But he actually earned less than he thought he would, right? And so that is really leading to the difference. So, you know, sometimes it's not just saving, like you could be saving really great and then you could still, or you could, you can be avoiding costs and you can still be at a deficit because sometimes you just don't make as much money as you are. Like, especially, for example, if you're selling on a commission, right? There's going to be fast months, there's going to be slow months. And so right here, you can see that his salary, he's 1,000 short in salary, which is really accounting for most of what's going on here. So that's the first question. So the second question, what is his fixed monthly expenses? So the hint is, let's go down to expenses. Whoops, fixed expenses, right? What would you guys say is fixed? Shout it out, type in the chat, anything goes.
I think you should define what fixed is, Larry,
Well,
so that everybody knows.
Fixed is something that is going to be around month to month, right? As opposed to something that's variable. So, right, like if I'm buying clothes, that's variable because it could be 0, it could be 100, it could be more. Something fixed is exactly, Mike said, the gas bill, right? For the most part, we're talking about needs versus wants. For a lot of our needs, those things are fixed because we have to pay the bills, we have to eat basic things, we have to, in this case, we have to buy groceries, we have to get, you know, gas if you have to drive to work, you have to pay insurance if you have health insurance, for example. All these things are fixed. Yes, taxes are also a fixed thing, although it's not exactly in this thing. And we got a lot of other great suggestions. We got mortgages, right? Cell phone bill, food, yes, food to an extent on that discussion of wants versus needs. Part of food is fixed. I would say some part of it is variable, right? We don't really need it if it's a treat, if it's eating out, it's variable. Not that you shouldn't have it, but that's really the difference between food, between fixed and variable expenses. And so coming back to this.
And just to add to what you were saying, Larry, as far as expenses are concerned, you know, like I said, the last class, I look at those as opportunities, ways in which I can do better and get tighter. So you don't have to go back to the expenses. So where it says, you know, your grocery bill, $350. You know, what are you buying? Where are you buying? Are you getting deals? You budgeted for $400, you save $50, which is great. But maybe next month I'll try to save $75. That could be the challenge. And even getting back to income, maybe I'll try to increase my income, find ways in which I can do, you know, find ways in which I can have secondary income coming in and multiple streams of income. But this budget you should all do, and hope you're all going to attempt, is like, you know, putting a realistic budget and something that's aggressive that you try to obtain. So even though, like Larry said at the beginning, you know, he had a net amount of $1,600 where he was underspending, but in my head, I'd be like, man, I didn't meet my budget. I'm still $900 short that I didn't pay to myself. And this gets into the theory of people saying, you know, pay yourself first. Like you could be saying, oh, right, I came in under budget, I saved a little, but, you know, I didn't pay myself what I needed to pay myself. So I need to work harder to get to that number if you're ever going to see $2,555, because that means if when I hit that, I've paid myself first, I respect myself, and then I'm able to, you know, feel good, and then keep pushing yourself.
And what Sean said last time is also true. So when you think about paying yourself, it's like, think about like paying your own salary, right? So not the salary that you're taking in. This is what your employer is paying you, right? But it's actually an expense. So a good example he gave last time was, you know, he puts X amount of money, a couple $100, let's say, or $1,000 a month into investments, and he's made that automated, so it automatically draws from his checking account. So in a way, that's like an expense. It's not really an expense because it's going to come back and help you when you retire, but thinking about it that way makes it seem like okay, well, yes, I have 1,600 bucks, but in reality, I've got 650 bucks of real money, right? Because I paid myself that $1,000 first. I'm investing that $1,000 this month. So that's how you should think about it. So the question at the end of the day, what percentage is left over? I mean, we just went over that, right? The 1,600 bucks, it would be the net amount divided by what you took in, right? So these are all percentage of budget. So I don't think we have that here, but you can just do the math, right? Roughly, it's almost half, right? It's just a little under half because you see these two are pretty equal, expenses and what he keeps. So what should he do with the remaining money? Is George going to save it? So this goes back to what Sean said, right? We said you have to pay yourself first. So aside from setting money aside to invest, so let's say George puts aside $1,000. He's got 650 bucks left this month. How do you think that George should spend this cash?
Or how would you spend that cash?
Yeah, how would you spend the cash? There's no wrong answer, by the way. It's how would you spend the cash?
No wrong answer.
I know we're gonna hear sneakers.
I would save it. Okay, Keen.
Okay, so you would
And
save even more.
Saving should always lead to investing, right? So you're going to save. Even your save goals should then transition into investing. It could be investing in yourself. It could be investing in the market. But you know, like we said, I don't know if you guys remember the beginning of the class. You know, my grandmother's theory: save, save, save is not the only component to financial literacy. Saving has to lead. Saving is a step into investing.
Absolutely. And Akeem also had another really good one where he said emergency money, right? I think there's a fun fact out there. Well, it's not so fun actually. Something like 40% or whatever of the US population, maybe I'm making the percentage up, but it's a big percent. It's like close to half, if not more, of the population can't afford an emergency bill of, I don't know what it was, like $500 or something like that, like a couple $100, which is, it's hard, right? You know, we touch wood and hope things don't happen. And especially for some of us who are a little on the younger side, right? Like we've never dealt with health problems. I've never broken a bone. I've never gone to the hospital overnight, right? It's like, you think just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean it's never going to happen. And you never know when things come. And there's always, like, you know how people talk about a rainy day fund, whatever, you can do all the budgeting you want. You can do every line item here for everything that you might do. But at the end of the day, there's going to be stuff that slips through the cracks, and having that emergency fund, having that extra money set aside is going to come in useful. So I think that's
Larry,
a really good point.
I wanted to jump in and just mention that what the class is centrally trying to get each of you to understand is that these techniques are going to be habits that you're going to carry forward, and you're going to see a great difference between those who practiced it and those who don't. And this is where, you know, what we're showing you, it's saving, then transitioning, like Sean said, and also saving for a rainy day. Once you're able to handle the minor hiccups of life that occur as you transition and get older, this will put you at a much better position to deal with life as we go forward.
And that comes into number 5, right? Should you spend now, or would you rather spend more at a later date? I mean,
hey, Larry, I was on the beans and rice diet for a long time. I rode a bike while I looked for properties. I saved. All I needed was to save enough to get that first 2 family. And I just made the wife, you know, agree that we would just do whatever it took to get that down payment. And after that, we didn't look back because we was able to monetize the property to bring in more income while we continued living in a very strict, but, you know, we had fun, we went out, but we were always ready for emergencies. Yep. That way we never borrowed from family.
Yep. And, you know, like rewarding yourself is a big thing that's important, right? We're not telling you guys to live like monks, right? I love food personally as well, Nigel. It's probably my biggest expense. And, you know, it's my little treat for finishing the week that I go out. I don't eat something super lavish, but I treat myself to something that I wouldn't ordinarily get. Or maybe I'll say, okay, I do takeout once a week because I can, right? I don't love paying the fees, but I do it once a week because it's, you know what? It's Friday. I've worked 4 days. I don't want to cook today. I deserve takeout. So it's like balancing, rewarding yourself, keeping yourself happy, and having that emergency fund for later.
I have a question for the class. How many students are on their own, or how many students have a majority of these expenses already? Like, their own utilities, their phone bill, their maybe a car note, or does any of the students have these expenses already? Just as a overall question.
Things that you're paying directly.
Right, that you're paying directly now.
We got phone bill, Kevin with a phone bill. Sebastian says yes. Phone bill, pays
Food bill.
for his own food.
And even if you're still at home, the more responsibility you're able to chip in and contribute to the house will always put you at a better position when you transition on your own. You don't want to wait till you're fresh in the water to learn how to swim.
That's a great
Oh,
line.
wow. Rent,
Great
food,
line.
and
Wow, yeah. See, we're getting more and more now. Everyone's on a rush. Everyone wants to pay their own bills. Wi-Fi, yep. Those are great places to start. And honestly, nowadays with that Experian Boost thing, which we talked about a couple classes ago, that will build your credit, right? Doing these little things. So,
right,
you guys.
right.
Okay, let's, does anyone have any other questions on this, on the budget, creating a budget, how to look at a budget, analyze it, before we move on to education? Going once, going twice. We got a no from Chris, no from Oliver. All right, you guys are awesome. You guys are smart.
Just have the courage to create your budget. Just that's it. This is like about having courage to do it and monitor and manage it. I remember when I started my budget in 2001, it was, it took me a while to get the confidence to do it. And I've carried it forward ever since. And I would not be where I am today if I didn't have my spreadsheet to look at every day and budget and see where I am and track my expenses. I would definitely, of all the great ideas I had, if I didn't have my budget, I wouldn't be where I am today. So it's very important in the success of financial literacy and in general. I see Mr. 850 nodding his head because you can't get there without knowing where you are, So it's important to do. I'm not to ignore. So sorry to interrupt, Larry. But with that being said, let's get into education as an investment. Education equals time, time equals money. Can anybody explain why we are starting off with that strong statement or formula? Does anybody know why we're starting off there? We're saying education equals time, time equals money. Let's say, Stacy, why are we saying that? Stacy, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just thinking about it. Because like education can like lead up to like a career, which can like having you receiving money about it, like earning money.
Okay, I'm not disagreeing with that. Anybody else? Can somebody else help her out? I think we have Chris. Can you help her out? Well, why do we say education equals time and time equals money?
We've got 3 people in the chat. Shout it out loud. Shout it out loud. Tell everyone.
Shout out loud. Yeah, shout out loud.
Joan, Akeem, Mike. Okay, we got. Ooh,
Don't be shy.
I saw Joan unmute.
Joan.
I said more education. The more education you have, the more money you make.
How so?
Like the more time you put into it, like a higher degree, it takes more time, but it's gonna in the end, it's gonna make you more money.
Okay, so and let me see, Akeem, what do you say? Okay, let me let you guys off the hook. This is my analogy that we give in all the courses. One thing we all have the same as is how many hours we have in a day. We all have 24 hours in the day. And it's about maximizing that return on your education by maximizing the amount you're worth in that hour. Everybody has an hourly rate right now. We all have an hour. If you're less than high school education, unless you have a special skill set, meaning you can dunk a basketball in 9th grade, or you can solve algorithms quicker than anybody else can. We generally have a worth out of high school. You're probably worth minimum or less than minimum wage, which is $15 an hour or less. So if you put 24 hours and you work every day times 15, that's the max you can make in a day, basically. But as you climb up the ladder of education, your worth gets higher, gets better. So you can go from graduating undergraduate now making maybe $40 an hour, going to grad school making $80 an hour, and you're all working within the same 24-hour time frame. So if you think of education that respect, meaning that, you know, the more I educate myself, the more I can get a higher rate of return. And you know, the funny thing, like in every other business model, it peaks because one could argue after you get your, you know, it's depending what field you are, like if you're in business, after you get your master's in business administration, getting your doctorate does not now equal that you're going to get more money. You've kind of peaked on the education level, but getting your doctorate as far as medicine can obviously mean you're going to get more money versus getting a Bachelor of Science or getting your master's in science. So with anything else, it becomes a point, even with education, where you're going to peak and say, well, I'm now going in the direction of more of an instructor, more of a professor. So not that I will get more money, I'll just more get maybe something that I want to do as far as teaching. But you should look at your education as a path to creating more wealth and working, getting more in that 24-hour given time frame per hour.
And on that note, there are a couple of cool things that I want to show you that supports what Sean said. We're not, you know, we don't just want to tell you what it is. We want to back it up with some evidence. So if I go here, right, there are a couple of ways that you can look at this. Education as an investment. I love the next two slides because this is literally, it's numbers on a page. And as Sean said, it's not per hour. This is weekly earnings. So you divide these by, I don't know, 7 times 8. If you divide this by about 55, 56 hours, then that's sort of your, you know, dollars per hour. And if you look at here, if you don't have a high school diploma, the unemployment rate is almost 5 times what someone with a doctorate degree. Let's not even go there. It's almost twice, you know, it's more than twice that someone who has graduated from college with a bachelor's degree has, right? So you're twice as likely to be unemployed.
And just referring to even today's market, what's happening in today with this whole pandemic, the people that are skilled labor, like with the bachelors and the masters, they're not the ones getting laid off. It's more the low skilled employees, the ones that are more susceptible and more the ones that are getting out of a job. And when you hear people complaining about they can't find a job, it's mostly the low skilled employers. So if you want to reduce the risk of being laid off, it's worth it to continue to educate yourself, because it's always, unfortunately, the less educated that get chopped off first.
Yeah, it is what it is, unfortunately. And it's, I mean, look, is it fair? Is it sad? It's tough. It's not, you know, it's not really our place to say whether it's fair or sad, because it's sort of just doing business. And if you look at this, right, the other thing I'll say about this is, despite seeing the curve this way and the curve this way, you know, people always ask, oh, what if I, like, what is it, Mark Zuckerberg or whoever it is, or Bill Gates, like they didn't finish college and they're billionaires. Well, that's what we call an outlier, right? How many people out there are Bill Gates, or how many people out there are Mark Zuckerberg, who can, you know, who have such a great idea and who have such conviction, who can drop out and also make it work? Not a lot, right? And I'm not telling you guys to discount yourselves, but what I'm saying is what we call as outliers. I think I don't know, you guys can agree to disagree. I would agree that you're far more likely to be an outlier if you have more education, just because you're surrounding yourself with more people who are inspired, who are driven, who are passionate, who are educated, who are trying to come up with ideas than here. It's not impossible. I just think it's more likely. So while, you know, the average weekly earnings, the median weekly earnings is here, it's, you know, only about 3 or 4 times more, despite all the money and all the time you spent getting up to here with your degree, you have a much higher chance of being way over on the right side if you do things right.
Yeah, I mean, numbers don't lie. Yes, there are outliers, like Larry just said, but these numbers don't lie. And what an education does for me, and I tell my children all the time, it hedges you. It gives you an opportunity to like survive certain economic conditions. It gives you an opportunity, you know, especially us, people of color. Like I always give them a reason. I try not to give people a reason to say no. If I'm applying for a job and they're like, if you're working at your job, so many people I know have been through this. They come home, they're mad because, you know, Brian is not as good as I am. Brian doesn't do what I have. And all Brian has is a master's. But doesn't mean he's a better employee. I'm not saying because he has a master's, I'm sure some of you adults can relate. Just because you have a degree doesn't mean you'll be a better employee. It doesn't guarantee you'll be a better employee, but it puts you on the same playing field, so they can't give you a reason to say no. Okay, I have my education like Brian does. I have my degree like Brian does, but now I have better work ethic and I know how to work and I know how to work hard. So it doesn't, I always say, even when it comes to me in real estate, I always, in my head as a business person, I always give them, I don't want to give them a reason to say no. I don't want them to say, hey, if you had an associate's degree or bachelor's degree, this job could be for you, or you're stuck here because you don't have the level of education that we're looking for, although you're great, although you're doing everything right. And young people may say, well, it's not going to happen to me. Trust me, if you don't get the type of education you need and you're trying to go in the path of a career, it'll come back to haunt you one way or the other. So I'm just saying it takes time now. Even if you're saying, well, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, like I'm an entrepreneur. There are so many theories I've learned in school that I applied to what I do in my business. And even working with Larry will tell me something like, Sean, you're in Boomerville right now. You need to get up to speed on how things are done. And my education gives me the confidence that I can catch up, that I can research, that I know I don't feel intimidated that what Larry's telling me isn't true. And I can, get to where I need to get to keep up with Larry's pace, because Larry puts me at a pace that I got to keep my old butt up with. So I'm saying an education gives you that sense of confidence and ability to know that you know how to learn. Graduating from college, university is not the smartest person. It's the one who can be consistent, the one who's determined, and who has a will. And if you don't believe me, you need to hear Larry's story. I mean, Larry's will to go to graduate school, and we should all congratulate him because he's been offered acceptance into Columbia. He gets on a waiting list for MIT. And, from the time I've met Larry, that he was going to those schools. And over the summer, he's self-teaching himself. He's self-preparing for all these classes because his will and his determination, even being part of Financial Clean, was part of building up his resume to show that he's a well-rounded guy, which he absolutely is. So, if you want to know how you leverage education, you have the number one person right there to tell you, and that's Larry Tang.
And Sean, you flatter me, but thank you.
I want you to stay. I don't want you going anywhere.
Well, I am staying, but I'm going to be around. But I'll say one thing. So I went to undergrad. It's complicated, but I started my undergrad at the University of Chicago. And if you know anything about the University of Chicago, it's a very
But roll back a little. You started from Canada. I mean, you're not somebody that came into the American school system. So
but I had no idea. I had no idea what I was going to do, and I had no idea what I wanted to do, and what sort of swayed me about going to Chicago. And like, I've only been to US maybe like 2 or 3 times before that. But like, what swayed me to go to Chicago was, they told me when I got in, and they called me and we were having a conversation. They said, look, like, going to college is not necessarily about teaching you exactly what to do. What we do is we teach you how to think. And that comes back to what Sean said, right? There are the ends, and like at the end of the day, we got to make money and get paid, but knowing the means is half the battle, because having the means is what creates the ideas to get to them.
And just to add, Larry, I'm going to ask you one question. So, and it'll probably throw people off. What's your number one reason why you want to go to graduate school? And I already know the answer.
I want to meet people and make more money.
You want to network.
Yeah.
Right. Once you get into graduate school, everybody's got to, for the most part, everybody's got to graduate from graduate school, but it's the people that you meet, the relationships you build in that graduate program that you can leverage and can last you a lifetime.
Hey, Sean, I want to add to what you just said for everyone there. We're talking about education, but your net worth is going to determine your net worth. So who you network with will determine how your net worth will grow. So if you're still hanging out on the corner with the guys and you're in your 30s, you gotta transition to a different company of people who are moving in another direction that's going to help you become a valued individual as you go forward. And as far as college, Larry's 100% right. College helps round off your thinking. And life is all about choices. If you can't think your way out of situations and figure things out, then you're going to be stuck, and you're going to be spending lots of money trying to get advice. Though advice, you should get good advice from the right people. But once you get that good education, one like Larry's received and continues to receive, it can only benefit you as you go forward in like he said, in developing network with people who are also moving in the right direction.
And I'll tell you this, and even if you get into a school and you're doing well in that school, push yourself to the next level of school, push yourself to the harder school, push yourself to surround yourself with people that have been successful. The schools that you apply to, you should see people that have graduated from those schools and done well for themselves. You know, another example is my good friend Glenford, his wife. She came from Jamaica as an immigrant, got her nursing diploma from Jamaica and became just a nurse. And she could have stayed as a nurse and been happy as a nurse, but she kept, throughout the years, she was always taking courses. So she got her bachelor's in America. Then she went and got her master's while she's working the whole time. And from there, she wound up moving up the ladder at the hospital, becoming the head nurse in the entire hospital. And she retired a year before she got her doctorate in nursing. And this is someone that just continued her education, and her education allowed her to keep moving up the ladder, moving up the salary, so that she left on top of the food chain at the hospital with a doctorate. And, you know, she didn't do it the traditional way, like go to school and then apply after she got a doctorate, but she continued. And now that she's retired, I'm like, so what are you doing next, Violet? She's teaching herself musical instruments. She's learning to play instruments to keep the mind going and keep moving. So I think those are a great example of, it's not a typical educational story, but it's a way in which you can encourage and keep yourself moving forward. If you're doing well at your community college or your SUNY college, and push yourself to go to another level, push yourself to the next level, because you're going to meet different sets of people, different pools of people, and step outside of your cultural comfort. You know, step outside of that. Don't think that you have to stay with. One thing I noticed when I moved to America, we're very comfortable within our own cultural comfort. And that's not necessarily the people that's going to help you get to the next level. You know, obviously you can see Larry and I don't have the same cultural background, but I've learned so much from Larry, and hopefully he's learned a lot from me. You know, get comfortable outside your comfort zone, because those things will open up doors. Like, just because you're a Spanish or you're Italian or you're Black doesn't mean all your friends have to be Spanish, Italian, or Black. You know, to get out there and meet people, network, and just show them the skills that you bring, your background, your education, and don't be shy of who you are and what you bring to the table.
I couldn't agree 100. I agree 100% with you, Sean. That's one of the reasons why I volunteered with Financially Clean. You guys are sharp. You guys are on point. And me, as the person in my family, I had only 2 years of college. Everybody else, my wife has 2 masters. 2 of my daughters have masters. My other daughter, she's working now for a publishing company. So, I mean, they value through watching my wife scale.
But don't underestimate yourself, Jeff, because you're forgetting one thing to tell everybody. You're self-educated. You're constantly reading books. You're constantly sharing books that I know. So you may not have the paper, but you have self-educated yourself. So don't underestimate what you've done.
Right. So that's where I wanted to just mention, irregardless if you don't have a degree, you still need education. This is so important, because in my field, where I do a lot of things hands-on, I have to make sure contractors are doing things right. I have to make sure I'm not overcharged. I have to, you know, it's endless. So if you're not educating yourself, constantly learning, finding people who may be a few steps ahead of you that have already been down that road, who can show you, hey, this is what you normally pay. Here's how you get this done. If you're not into that and moving into other areas, it's going to be hard for you. And they say ignorance is very expensive.
Absolutely.
I can't afford it.
No, none of us can. I think we've beaten this point home.
Okay.
Let me show you one more thing just to beat it home again. This is if you multiply it out, this is the same chart as before, the other way around, right? More education down here, less education up here. This is the median household income. So I think the assumption for household is 2 working parents, I think. And this is how much you earn, and this is how it increases if you get more. The funny thing is obviously doctors don't earn as much as people with professional degrees. I would say I wouldn't read too much into it. I would read into more the overall trend, right? That the amount just multiplies as you become more educated.
And it gets back into your hourly worth, like we said from the beginning.
So I'll kick it over to Sean for this real quick.
These are just resources that we found that can explore options for paying for your education. I always say, you know, your last option should be to be getting a loan. You should be looking into getting grants. You should be, you know, my nephew, who is not the smartest guy, but he found ways in which to get grants. Like his godfather was part of, what do you call those men that are involved in all these all-male groups that are, I can't remember the name of them now. It's part of one of the, not fraternity, older guys. You know, they all wear the funny hats.
Oh,
Oh, the Ikes? The Ikes?
I know what you're
no.
talking about. I know what you're
Oh,
talking about.
Masons.
I was gonna say
Masons?
Freemasons. I didn't want to
Yeah.
say that and be wrong.
Yeah, Masons, you know, they're all the part of the crew. I don't know what they do in these meetings, play cards, whatever they do, but they would have like scholarship funds, and nobody applied to it. My nephew got it every year for like $1,200. Plus, his mother, my sister, was a single mother. She had him at 19. The high school that she went to had a program too for scholarships for kids, and he would
Right.
just get different grants and scholarships, not even based on his education, and it would cover part of his tuition and books. So it's to think outside the box, and even for those that want to maybe work at reputable places like working at a Walmart, a McDonald's, people, you may shy at it now, but they have great scholarship programs that if you work there over a summer, you could probably apply and get one of their scholarships. And if you get a scholarship for like $5,000, divide that how many hours you worked in the summer, and really that was your hourly rate. So there's many different programs, and there's the websites we listed. We could just take a picture of it. They can help you figure out, scholarships that you can qualify for. And think about it, you can apply for unlimited amount of scholarships that are out there.
Yep. Absolutely.
So let's go to the next slide. Thinking about self-improvement, beyond short-term opportunity, think about how you can develop your skills in long-term when society gets back to normal. I mean, this pandemic exposed, those who were prepared and those who are looking to take advantage, and those who are looking to sharpen their skills or get new skill sets that can adapt to this environment. Don't like a backwards way of thinking is like, I'm waiting for things to go back to normal. No. I deal with the now, and I adjust and I pivot to the now, because it's never going to be how things were before. So you're missing a lot of opportunities, and you're not increasing your skill sets if you're just waiting for things to get back. And what we talked about from the beginning, the Warren Buffetts, the Bill Gates would give up all of their billions to have what you guys have, which is time, which is youth. So don't waste it on waiting. I hate to see young people waiting. Waiting for what? My son's like, wait, what are you waiting for? I would do anything to have your time. You know how aggressive I'd be with your time, what I'd be out there doing if I was in my 20s all over again? I'd be buying everything inside, investing in it, because I know I have time to recuperate if I do take a loss, and I'm going to learn so much along the way. I would be so aggressive if I was in my 20s and even in my early 30s. Next slide. Okay, so we're going to go through quickly. We're going to toggle back and forth, Larry, myself, and Mr. 850, about the skills that you should be trying to acquire. And this is what employers are looking for. And you may not have them all, but you got to chip away at them. I see a lot of people at work. Some people at work are just doers. You tell me to do A, B, you tell me to hop, skip, and a jump, and I'm going to hop, skip, and a jump every day. This is what you told me to do. I'm going to hop, skip, and jump. I'm not going to think outside the box, even though I think I should skip, jump, and hop. I'm not, boss man told me hop, skip, and jump. So all I'm going to do is hop, skip, and jump. But I see we could skip. We can maybe take out the hop and just skip and jump. But no. I was told to hop, skip, and jump. So I want you to understand how to think forward, what skills you need, what employers are looking for. There are people that think outside the box. So we listed a number of things, and we'll try to get through them as quickly as we can. And one of the first, and they're in no particular order, by the way. None is more important than the other. They're all just as important in my opinion. One is collaboration. Functions well in groups and projects, accepts criticism. Simple as it sounds. You may be the smart guy. I see people looking at the screen and saying, I know this, I know that. And the person that always wants to raise their hand and tell other people. That person is not the person that gets ahead in the workplace. I've met the smartest people I have make me feel like I'm just as smart as them. But in the back of your mind, they're smarter than you. But they're able to deliver things in such a welcoming, warm way. Like Larry can deliver things in a way that makes me feel comfortable. It doesn't make me feel like, Sean, you're such a boomer. Like he could tell me every time, you're such a boomer. But he makes me feel like, okay, let's get through this. Let's put this together. What are skills you have, Sean? How can we do this correct? And those type of people, and not the type of person that says that you may have them in college, like, oh, forget it. Let me do this project by myself because I can do it. I don't need you guys. No, those people don't get ahead well, because work environment is always group oriented and accepts criticism, construction. Just take it in, absorb it. And, if you feel it's applicable to you, then make the adjustment. If you feel like somebody's telling you something that's not true, then you don't have to be rude about it. Just know in your mind, like people say things about me that I don't believe it's true. And in some things I believe it's true. And it's up for me to make the adjustment. But you don't have to call people out. You can welcome the criticism and see how it can change and make you a better person. Sorry, I'll let Larry go to the next one, and then Mr. Afis will go to number 3.
Yeah, I'm going to go over communication and interpersonal skills. That one's a funny one, right? That's another big reason I'll say why people go to business school and go to graduate school, because a lot of it is interacting with people and forming relationships, right? We have relationships on another slide, but it's really important to make sure that, you know, just because you're smart, just because you know what to do, again, because the workplace is a place where you're working with other people, you have to make sure that they also are in the loop, that they have their questions answered, because they also, you know, they may bring something to the table that you didn't think about before. So making sure that you're able to interact and be respectful, right, is important. So the bullet we have on there is more for things you guys can do, right, to make sure you ask good questions, to show that you're engaged, to listen, to maintain eye contact, but also be accepting of the people that you work with to do the same of you. The next thing I'll say is, I'll say almost 3, 7, and 8 are together. So I'm going to skip around a little bit, and then I'll throw the rest to Mr. 850. But 3, 7, and 8, problem solving, analytical reasoning, critical thinking, they all sound very similar. They mean slightly different things, right? And I'll start with problem solving. So again, life is unexpected and requires a lot of creative solutions, right? So going to school, if we just studied everything by the book and we studied examples of what people did before, yeah, great, that'd be good. But it wouldn't necessarily teach us how to tackle a new problem perfectly, right? Part of it is knowing that nothing is going to be like an exercise that you do in class. Nothing is going to be like a math problem. And you have to figure out, based on what you learned before, how to take the best approach to it. So that takes problem solving, that takes reasoning in the way where, you know, sometimes you can get overwhelmed if it's something that you don't initially know, but having the patience to sort of sit down, take a breath, and chunk it is what I call it, chunk it into smaller pieces. Okay, in order to solve this question, I need to be able to figure out A, B, and C. In order to figure out A, I need to do this, B, this, C, this, then put it all together at the end, right? And not be overwhelmed by the bigger picture. And then critical thinking is just similar, right? It's just, how can I take a bunch of data, how can I take a bunch of information, put it together and draw a conclusion and draw a decision? Because, you know, you can do all the analysis. I'm guilty of this. You can do all the analysis in the world and show people that you're smart, but in the end, you have to make a call and you have to make a judgment. And if you can't make a decision, if you can't come to a recommendation or an opinion, then you're not that helpful. Right. So I'll shoot it over to Mr. 850.
I just want to add to what you're saying about critical thinking and problem solving. I had a situation in one of my properties where the my laundry room was run by a pretty big company in terms of they would bring the machines, they would fix the machines. I got a percentage. I was getting robbed by a bunch of fees. So I decided, you know, I got to find a way to get out of this contract. I didn't really, you know, understand fully what the contract was. And so I sat down one night and I read the whole contract. So I sent them a letter and they decided to let me out of the contract. So now, if I'm going to have my own machines, I don't know the laundry business. So I decided to I go online and I joined the laundry commercial magazine. So all the major laundromats and small ones get this magazine. Through this magazine, now I got solutions to problems on what type of machines fit best for small properties. So critical thinking, learning how to figure things out. You're not going to have all the solutions, but remember, you got Google, you got online, and you can see an assortment of solutions to those problems. So going back to what Larry was talking about now, and we're leading into time management, you know, this is ongoing for anybody, whether you're in business, whether you're in school, whether you're in a relationship. Do you have the right amount of time to do what you want? And you never do. We all want more. So work often does not follow a structure, and learning to prioritize those actions. You know, you want to be able to get more out of work to impress whoever you work for. You want to get more out of your company to, you know, increase the bottom line. So now you have to learn how to manage not only your time, but hopefully the people you hire manage their time so you get the best use out of those individuals. Any words, Larry?
I think that that's a perfect way to do it. And I'll finish up on number 5 on leadership. Honestly, I would say all of these things that we just talked about, problem solving, communication, collaboration, reasoning, thinking, is really what builds up to leadership, right? It's like being able to use those skills to work with the team, to take the lead if you need it, but also to step back if, and give responsibility to people as part of your team, to give them ownership, right? And that's something that it's hard, because I always listen to a lot of friends who are working and everyone complains about, oh, a boss that wasn't good, or a manager that, was giving them problems, that was a bad leader. And you know what I always say? I'm like, just because I ask them, how did they get into their position? And they're like, oh, well, they got promoted because they were a great analyst or a great intern or a great salesperson. And I'm like, well, being a good performer doesn't make you a good leader and doesn't make you a good manager. So it's a completely different set of skills that you need to think about. So I think being aware of these things, especially some of the softer skills that we always talk about, that people sometimes go, well, that's BS. Well, it's important, especially when you get to a little bit of a senior position. So we have a couple more. Sean, I'm not sure if you want to do any of these, or
Yeah,
do you want to...
let me just add to what Larry said about
Yeah.
leadership, so everybody understands. I know there's some people that are on this call that maybe somewhat have a shy person in high school or a shy person in college, and you have to really move past that. You have to stand out strong and take initiatives, take on projects. Trying to hide behind and play like to side where nobody notices you, not be noticed, is not a way to build wealth and not a way to get ahead. And if, there's no bad, I know it's a cliche, there's no bad question as long as you say it with confidence. The ability to want to learn and looking to learn and asking the right questions is a great thing in the workplace. And taking on roles and taking on, even if you're just working the line flipping burgers, saying that you want to be the best burger flipper ever, and you want to take on the way in which the burger is flipped, you want to learn more about how it's flipped, what it's doing, showing those things, showing those skill sets, it's what's going to get you ahead. So you have to really focus on getting leadership skills, and it's called for speaking out. Like even in this program that we're teaching, we all actively get involved, so we increase our skill set. So it's not just about me teaching or Larry teaching or Mr. 850. We all try to add value, so we're increasing our skills as well. So let me go to writing. It's very important for young people. How you write is a reflection of who you are. I've met people that have the best gift for gab, can talk me into buying ice in Iceland. But then they'll send me an email and the deal is done. I'm tuned out because they have poor communication skills. They have bad grammar. They're talking like how they speak. It's just, for the business professional, for even the workplace, it's not something that's welcome. And people are not going to comment on it. So because they don't want to, it's sensitive. They don't want to let you know. They don't want to say it because they know you could be offended by it. But trust me, if your writing skills are not up to par and you're writing like how you message your friends, and you're doing that to your boss or your employer, it's something that's going to hold you back. And so you have to know that there's a way in which to communicate. Like I don't ever, like, for example, I met with a photographer this morning about some work I need done. And not until he was using he's explaining things to me and he was using profanity, not in a negative way, just but I stayed professional. I don't really just because your boss goes a certain way and gets comfortable and gets, so doesn't mean you have to follow suit. You can still be very welcoming and feel good. And if he writes in a way that's not professional, but I would recommend you stay professional, because you don't know where that information or that email that you sent is going to pass on, who it gets forwarded to. The next one I'm going to talk about is listening, and this is something I work on daily myself, the importance of listening, the importance of retaining the information, regurgitating the information, understanding the information. And if you don't understand it, asking the right question. Every employer hates when you say you got it, and you're like, yeah, I got it, and you don't got it. And you don't have it. And then you're making a mistake because you didn't understand what they asked the first time. So, being the smartest person in the room doesn't mean you have to talk every minute. The smart people are the great listeners, are the great people that can listen. And then, there's this guy I used to work with, his name was Leo. He didn't say much, but when he spoke, it was a game changer. He'd redirect the whole direction of the meeting. He'd change the meeting from thinking in one way to thinking of a whole different way. And you can tell he took in what everybody said, and then he's figured out, how we can do this better, how we can make it better. So you can be that person in a meeting that says one or two things, but when you speak, everybody's tuned into you because they know what you're going to say is going to add tremendous value. And that's by having great listening skills. And then I'll go to number 11, then I'll let Larry continue from there. Attention to detail. I cannot stress this enough. We're going to talk about this more next week in the last class, so I'll go over it real quickly. But attention to detail is paying attention to the finer details. You notice everything. One of the things I do, even when I'm writing and I'm emailing, I still like a child. And the best way to correct your work and see what you're writing is to read it out loud. Because when you read something out loud is when you catch a lot of the mistakes that you're making. So I still will read things out loud if I'm sending an email out, no matter how much, to make sure that it sounds right. And people do not like people that miss detail, that skim through things, rush through things, and they miss pertinent information. If you want to move up the ladder, you want to create wealth, the detail is, especially contracts, like one bad contract can set you back for a lifetime. So you really want to pay attention. We're going to talk about more of that next class. So I'll let Larry go to the next one because he's the king of that.
Yeah. So, I already talked about relationship building right earlier. Again, part of who your network is your net worth, right? And so, look, I'm not telling you to flatter every single person you meet, because if you do it overboard, then they just think you're a brown noser, and that's not great either. The best type of relationships are organic, but sometimes you have to be smart, right? Like I'm a fiery guy. I like to speak my mind, but sometimes people can get offended. Sometimes people can get hurt. And part of that is having empathy, right? And having empathy is understanding where the other person comes from, being in their shoes, understanding why, certain things happen. So like when it comes to a lot of, let's say, controversial opinions, this is not a political discussion. This is not a whatever, but these days we've had a lot of political discussions in and out of the office, right? Among friends, among the workplace. And I think instead of just reacting immediately to someone who doesn't share your beliefs and just going, how could you think that way? How could you be like that? Take a minute to think about where they came from and how they came to have their beliefs. And part of maintaining a relationship is being tolerant of that, right? And knowing that the way that you initially thought about them could be the same way that they think about you, right? And so I think it's possible to maintain your ethics, your morals, your whatever, but still maintain healthy relationships with people who don't necessarily share those same beliefs. Now,
I have a question.
Sure.
How do you go about like making relationships with people, and like with who? What types of people?
I think it's hard to go out there and say, I'm going to make relationships, right? Unless you're in a setting in school where you're sort of forced to do it. A lot of the times it's going to be through randomness. So honestly, I've met friends through just having a conversation in a bar. I've met friends on planes, right? Obviously I've met friends at school, and obviously I've met friends at work. And so I think you have to use avenues and talk to people, and it's sort of a numbers game where you're just going to click with some people. And if you make yourself tolerant, if you make yourself, empathetic, and you put yourself out there, the relationships will come to you.
And Larry, I want to add that one of the things you can do is there's a website called Meetup. And Meetup is a website where people of similar interests meet. So right now, some of them are meeting on Zoom. Some people meet in places they can social distance. So I don't care if your interest is bird watching or, bicycle riding or roller skating or knitting. There's a group that you can network with. So I like real estate. Wherever I went to Arizona last year. I went to Meetup. I found a couple of groups, So now I'm like, okay, I can go meet people of similar interests who can school me, teach me on what's going on in Arizona and how to go about, the easiest way for me to either get into the game or just understand it. In Florida, I went to meetups. I didn't go to the meetups, but I saw where they were. All right. And this gives you a chance to know when you're ready to go and network with people. There's groups that you can network with to increase your ability to know what's going on and to see it from different angles. And I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, like shared experiences is the easiest way to make friends, right? If you both like something, then it breaks down a lot of the walls that you get, and it's not as awkward when you talk to people. But I'll finish it off. I know we're coming up to time, so I'll be quick about these two. I think these two are just like skills that any person in the workplace and on a personal life need to have. You know, these days with technology being everywhere, I think computer skills, I don't have to say too much. I hope, you know, you guys are using Zoom, so you guys can't be that bad. So I hope you guys are building yourself. I'm always trying to build myself. I'm kind of old fashioned when it comes to computer skills. So it's something that, you know, you want to know enough to be dangerous is how I think about it. You don't have to be the wizard at everything, but you want to know just enough. And multitasking, well, you're on your phones, you got your computer, we got other people, you know, sending us emails, you got texts, you got TikToks and everything. So, you know, being able to prioritize and juggle different things and knowing what's important to do first is something that everyone needs to be able to figure out. So
Yeah, in this work environment, in the world that we live in today, I can't stress enough how important multitasking is. You have to be able to show that you're flexible, you can do multiple things at a time and do it precisely. You know, you can't like stick to one thing and know one thing and then accept that that's going to get you ahead. You have to show that you can do multiple things at a given period of time and deliver.
Sean, I think for the sake of time, maybe we go to this the last slide, because I think this last slide is more relevant, but we'll send this deck around so people can take a look, but sort of answers some of the questions we had already about, you know, how to get involved and what can you actually do. These are, you know, geared towards people who are in school right now, right? But you can always be an entrepreneur. You can do that anytime. Internships, you can do it anytime. Network, we just talked about it, anywhere, anytime, even virtually. Find a group of people that you like, similar, right? And lifelong learning, which is where we're going to talk about right here. So I don't know, Sean or Mr. 850, do you want to add anything on this?
Well, the lifelong learning, I would just add that, you know, all of us, Sean and Larry and me, we're lifelong learners. So we're always learning. I've learned so much being with Clean. I've met some wonderful people, and it keeps me looking at my life and reviewing myself as I go forward, even though I'm retired, even though I'm looking to do travel, but I am always looking to learn something new from someone. And that's the beauty of being a lifelong learner.
And I think it's fair to say the point of this slide is really, look, school is not the only way to get there. School is expensive. I get it. And some of you might have jobs. Some of you guys have other obligations, personal things that prevent you from spending time full-time in school. There's always part-time. There's always online classes. But aside from that, even like after you're out, even after you're done education, there are a lot of things that you can pick up these days with technology where it's super easy to get access to things that before you would need an acceptance to a brand name university or college or whatever to, or an institution to be able to get, right? And so I just put out, these are not the rules. These are some of the examples that we put out here. I see ads for these all the time, but places like Skillshare, places like Coursera, places like Khan Academy, you know, if you have a question about a certain subject, a lot of these most of them are free. Not all, most of them are free. And the ones that aren't free are usually pretty cheap, like $5 to $10 a month. So for the cost of 2 burgers, or 1 in New York, I guess, you should be able to get access to really anything you want, whether it's academic, whether it's programming, whether it's marketing, design, photography, anything, right? If you want to start a YouTube channel, I think there are literally people these days, it's sort of the age of everyone who's sharing their information. So
I was just about to say that.
yeah, it is. We are in the age of that. I think I was a little skeptical in the beginning. I was like, I don't know who I should listen to, but I mean, that's for your judgment, right? So if you want reputable places where people have to be vetted before they do that, go on one of these platforms and then look for people who have the highest ratings, right? So you know the information that you're getting is real. And the other thing I'll say, I know Mr. 850, you want to talk about the open library, but before I turn it over, I'll say you can get a brand name education and you can get certified for a brand name education for free or for a low cost at a lot of places. I think Mr. 850, you found this about Harvard, or Sean, you found this about Harvard offering courses for free because of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. At Coursera, this was founded by a bunch of universities and companies who wanted to offer, you know, education to people around the world. And I think it's like you can audit the class for free, Or if you want a certificate that you can put on your resume, it's like $40 or $60, right? It's $40 to get a certificate for this class. So you can take anything on it and say, I got my degree from Columbia, University of Michigan, whatever, NYU, whatever you want to, like these big brand name universities. And there's no screening, there's no admissions process. It's open to everyone. So I think education has definitely been democratized these days, and you should take advantage of it. Anything else I missed, Sean or Jeb?
I'm good. You guys have
Nope.
any questions? Anybody have any
think you
questions?
covered it.
Going once?
Okay.
I just wanted to just reiterate just like how important this slide is, and then also just like Larry, I know you just brought up the fact that YouTube is like YouTube University. I think Sean, you used that phrase like sessions ago. But it really can be YouTube University, where you can literally type in most things these days and find, if not a similar video or exactly what you're looking for, and you can replay it too. A lot of times, you know, when you're in these classes, you only have a chance to hear the professor once, unless you're recording it, or if they are recording it like in a video format, then you have a chance to go back. But with YouTube, you can literally make a mistake, go back and see what you did wrong, go back and try it again. So use a lot of these different resources, as well as the ones on this slide, to just teach yourself, and like everyone has been saying, continuing to learn and educate yourself. I completely agree.
Yeah.
I just want to quickly add. Go ahead, Sean.
You know, part of the reason why you know, me doing Financially Clean, why I love doing even the podcast, it forces me to learn. It forces me to keep up. It forces me to stay current, you know. So this program helps me as well, because I'm forced to keep up with things and make sure that one of my greatest fear when I'm teaching is that you guys are gonna have a question, I won't be able to answer it. So I make sure that, you know, I stay current because of this program.
I just want to add to that and say this to each one of you guys. Whatever you're facing right now, you can figure it out. You can reach someone who can help give you some assistance, and you can do it through certain medias online, or you can do it through the information the class can assist you with. Here's an example. I have a simple problem at home. My dryer has died. My wife's advice is throw it out and buy another dryer. But no, I am not spending the money. So what do? I don't know anything about dryers, but I'm not afraid to try to figure it out. So in life, don't be afraid to try to figure things out. I'll open it up. I'll see if it's lint. I'll see if it's the motor. If it's the motor, I'll look to throw it out. If it's not, then I'll look to fix it myself. And that's one of the obstacles you're going to always face. Are you afraid to try to figure it out? I would say, don't be afraid.